church in person, and whether today is your first time here or you've been coming for years, we're so glad you are with us. My name is Cynthia Martin, and my pronouns are she and her. And I'm serving as this morning's worship associate for the first time. We are growing a community that transforms lives through the power of love. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel on and care for the earth. A special welcome to those at home who are joining us on Zoom today. If you're attending for the first time, please go to our website and fill out the welcome card so we can learn more about you. Now we do have some announcements. I have two announcements, and I'm pleased to announce that one of the announcements is from me. I am pleased to remind you to put Saturday, December 7th in your planners because it's the Holiday Artisans Fair from 9 to 1 here. There is plenty of parking, practical purchase with affordable prices, and it will be just plain fun. As a member of A2U2, you are already a part of the publicity team. Please start thinking where you want to place posters and who you want to invite. Posters will be available next week for placement at your favorite community location. And this about circle dinners. Circle dinners are back starting in January. Registration is online this year through a link in the e-blast. Deadline for registering is November 18th, and any questions, see Susan Selby. Now we invite you all to take this opportunity to silence your cell phones so that we can be fully present to one another. After the service, please grab a cup of coffee or tea in the kitchen window and stay for conversation, or head down to the end of the long hallway to join a group for the brown bag lunch. Those on Zoom may stay on and connect with one another. And now, let us center our hearts and minds with the ringing of the chimes.
Good morning, church. What a joy to see you this morning. I know we're all here because we're freaking out. But what better place to freak out together, right? My name is Reverend Tara, for those of you I haven't met before. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the minister here at Allen Ave, UU Church, A2U2 for short. We need one another in such a time as this, and so what a delight that you have arrived here. Zoom folks, I'm holding you close today too. Today in worship, we will ground ourselves spiritually for the week that is ahead of us. We'll acknowledge what's at stake and how scary it is. And we'll remember in what and in whom we put our faith, as well as the way we are called to live in this world, which does not and will not change. After the time for all ages this morning and the lamplighting ritual, our children and youth will join Emily for an RE session using Legos to explore the UU value of justice. Later this afternoon, I'm jealous. I'd like to join them if anyone wants to switch places with me. Later this afternoon, our 4th and 5th graders will gather for their final Our Whole Lives session focused on consent, peer pressure, and healthy relationships. The work continues. Whatever is on your heart this morning, it is good to be together. And as you settle into this time and this place set apart, take a breath and hear these words of invocation by the Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich. When autumn comes, when the wind blows through the trees and rustles the drying corn, when tongues of flame flicker even in the steadiest breeze, when rivulets of rain chart a new course down the window's glass, when the ground itself rolls underfoot, then we know change is woven into everything. When autumnal sunshine stretches itself thin, unsure whether to lengthen or contract, when crisp air and crisp apples point at each other like scarecrow at the crossroads, and our mouths are stopped up with dried leaves, then we feel the turning of the year. When we hear handbells chiming the hour, when we hear them in a different way, and we're invited to do something different, then we run through all our options. Sit tight, panic, leave, play along, and we get to make a choice. When we roll with the change underfoot, when we enter uncharted territory, when we hold steady amidst the unknown, when we follow where inspiration leads, then we've offered each other the gift of our presence, and all the world says yes. Come and be welcome. You are joyfully called to worship.
As we light our sanctuary chalice this morning, those joining on Zoom are invited to light a chalice or candle near you to connect us more deeply with one another. Welcome all who seek renewal in a weary world. Welcome all who come with love and energy to share. Welcome to those who worry for the future. Welcome each one who is grateful for today. Know that in this place, you are not alone. In community, we share our strength with one another, and we keep the flame of love burning bright. Know that in this place, responsibility is shared. Here, tradition holds us. Ancestors shine a light from the past. Here, the young lift their bright faces and beckon us onward. Take my hand, and we can go together.
We light our community candle this morning for a little extra light and a little extra warmth. Many in our communities struggle with seasonal depression and daylight savings, though it made you all on time today. It can be the beginning of a challenging time for a lot of people. Let us be a community of warmth and welcome for those struggling silently with mental illness of all kinds. Will you take a breath with me? Our opening hymn this morning is 115 in your gray hymnal or up on the screen, God of Grace and God of Glory. Dale will play it through once, and then you are invited to rise in body or spirit as we join our voices in song. How many of you have ever played on a playground? Adults too? Really? Some of you haven't? I'm sorry. I have a story to share this morning about a playground. One morning, Jonah decided to become ruler of the playground. I am now king of this land, announced Jonah. Promise to obey me, and I'll let you play in my kingdom. Jonah's kingdom had slides, so everyone pinky promised, and just like that, Jonah became king of the playground. King Jonah was skilled in some ways, generous most of the time. He let them share a saltine among them. Everyone played in the kingdom except for Lennox, because they wanted to rule the playground too. This side of the playground is now mine, announced Lennox. Cross your hearts and promise to follow my rules. Lennox's playground had slides and swings, so everybody crossed their hearts and promised to obey, and just like that, Lennox became royalty too. Lennox was wise and patient most of the time. Everyone played in royal Lennox's kingdom, everyone except King Jonah. This playground is mine, shouted King Jonah. No, it's not, it's all mine, shouted Lennox back. And just like that, the playground was divided in two. Jonah and Lennox schemed a plan to grow each of their kingdoms. They conquered small things and big things. They even tried to conquer Augustine's dog, St. Hamilton Humphrey Hildebrand III. Stay, hollered King Jonah. Fetch, shouted Lennox. The dog wasn't having it. Jonah and Lennox claimed the entire playground until there was nothing left to conquer and no one left to play with. Until there was nothing left to conquer and no friends to play with, not even each other. Conquering is complicated, said King Jonah. Yeah, Lennox said, super complicated. So they made a new plan. They took down their royal flags. They gave back their kingdoms to the collective. Jonah stopped being king. Lennox stopped being royalty too. We're done conquering, Jonah said. We cross our hearts and promise to never be rulers again. And just like that, the playground was fun again. Sometimes we think, bless you, it will be really good, it will feel really good to be in charge. How many of you have had that experience? I have. And then, like Jonah and Lennox, we remember that working together and playing together actually feels better than being in charge, than conquering. The kids and youth in this room have probably heard the grown-ups in your life talk about the election a lot this fall. People on all sides are pretty nervous about having someone in power who they think will want to conquer and take things from them. And so our prayer as a community is that whoever is elected to any of the positions, and there are more positions than just president, right? Congress and school board and city council, we pray that all of these folks who are elected to all these positions choose not to be conquerors, but to work well and play well with those around them. Emily will now come forward and introduce this morning's lamplighter.
In a few moments, some of us will leave the sanctuary to enjoy religious education programming, but Dala has joined me in the pulpit as our lamplighter. A lamplighter is entrusted to transfer the light of the sanctuary chalice to the lamp and then go forth to RE spaces where they will light the chalices there. I invite those going to RE to follow the lamplighter as we carry the flame, expanding our sacred space.
Would you join me now in the spirit of prayer? God of many names and one abundant love, lend us strength that together we might return to the very best of our humanity for the benefit of all. In this season, we come together as an act of moral witness for this nation and for its people. We come together as a living embodiment of the call to center justice in our democracy and hold fast to its ideals. It is ours through our free use of reason and our investment in the collective liberation of all to ensure that we elect leaders called to do the work of justice. Our people deserve responsible leaders who center our most impacted, poor, and marginalized communities and work to repair the corruptions of systemic oppression. In this time marked by intentional division and the encouragement of hate among neighbors, let us instead put our faith to work in support of our communities. May our prayers be heard as a call to organize, to build our collective power, and to sustain our moral witness through this week and far beyond. In the name of all that we hold holy, we pray. Amen.
Now is the time in our service where we engage in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts support the ministries of this congregation and our work in the broader community. Each week, 1/3 of our offering is given away to a local nonprofit organization doing work to advance our shared values in the world. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Window Dressers of Maine. They bring community volunteers of all economic and social situations together to improve the warmth and comfort of interior spaces, lower heating costs, and reduce carbon dioxide pollution by producing low-cost insulating window inserts that function as custom interior-mounted storm windows. Important as we enter the winter months. Donations can be made now as the basket is passed through the donate button on our website, or if you are a member on Breeze, remembering to make note that your gift is for Share the Plate. If you are visiting for the first time this morning, please know that your presence is your gift to us. At this time, our offering will be collected and gratefully received. Our reading this morning is by Parker Palmer from his book entitled Healing the Heart of Democracy: The Courage to Create a Politics Worthy of the Human Spirit. He writes, our differences may be deep. What breaks my heart about America may make your heart sing, and vice versa. Protecting our right to disagree is one of democracy's gifts, and converting this inevitable tension into creative energy is part of democracy's genius. You and I may disagree profoundly on what constitutes a political failure or success, but we can still agree on this: democracy is always at risk. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people is a nonstop experiment in the strength and weakness of our political institutions, our local communities and associations, and the human heart. Its outcome can never be taken for granted. The democratic experiment is endless unless we blow up the lab and the explosives to do the job are found within us. But so also is the heart's alchemy that can turn suffering into community, conflict into the energy of creativity, and tension into an opening toward the common good. We can help keep the experiment alive by repairing and maintaining democracy's neglected infrastructure, whose two levels are the invisible dynamics of the human heart and the visible venues of our lives in which whose dynamics are formed.
Believe it or not, we are on holy ground. We are on holy ground. The precipice of deciding as a nation which direction we will choose to travel together, and if and how. A threshold moment of waiting and hoping. And I don't know about you, but I so wish I could fast forward through this next week or until, mid-January, and just be on the other side of this madness. But the wise part of me, that's small and deep, knows that there is no other side of this. That there is no happy ending, regardless of the outcome, what this country has become, and the way our systems and relationships have fractured and polarized is atrocious and heartbreaking. There is no going back, no unhearing or unsaying what has been said. There is only looking around at where we are now, today, and imagining and organizing for where we hope we will go in the future. So this morning, I want to focus on what we need for the facing of this hour. When you're feeling wound up, there's absolutely nothing worse than someone else telling you to put your problem into perspective, right? So I'm not going to do that, and don't you dare do that to me. But I do believe that one of the things we need for the facing of this hour is perspective. Perspective that doesn't discount how we feel about things, but that adds another layer to our understanding, that adds a feeling, complicates our narrative, and hopefully breathes a bit of life into our spirits. I've heard it said for months now by people much wiser than I am that elections are harm reduction, not liberation. They create the conditions under which we organize. They are not the content of the organizing itself. The Reverend Ashley Horan, former organizing strategist with the UUA Side with Love, puts it this way. For those of us, she says, who actually yearn for liberation and freedom for all people, and a government that will prioritize care for all of its citizens and those who aren't citizens, our goal should always be to elect candidates who we are most likely to have success in agitating, organizing, pressuring, and collaborating with to get policy wins that are part of a liberatory agenda. That said, she continues, we must always have a longer horizon for our organizing than any election, and be clear that voting and electoral organizing are only one set of tactics within broader strategies for cultural, relational, and political organizing that will actually get people free. So we absolutely have to organize around and participate in electoral politics, but that cannot be all that we do. It can't be all that we do. We have to understand that the work begins in earnest after folks get into office. The answer to the question which candidates will save us is none of them. But if we ask, in Horan's words, who is most likely to be an ally? Who is most likely to be an ally to and advocate for at least parts of our policy agenda? And who is most likely to be movable by targeted, strategic, power-building organizing? That's the question. Anyone we elect will need to be moved, so we elect those who are most movable of the options. Another piece of perspective that helps complicate an all or nothing narrative that's really easy to fall into when we're afraid is that while the threat to democracy is new for some, particularly those who hold privileged identities, the democratic system we have now has not worked for many people for a very long time. Progressive organizers have been sounding alarm bells for a very long time. They have been working for justice for a very long time. My colleague, UU religious educator C.B. Beale, reflected that for them, as an American with marginalized identities, over time, as things have not improved, where would I go turned into, I have a right to stay. And I have the right to stay has changed to, I have the right and responsibility to stay. I'm not leaving my people, they say, they're mine. CB writes that the situation we're in is both new and not new at all. Democracy has never been something, they say, that I relied on. It's always been something I've been trying to shore up, develop, and make into something true. Democracy is, in the words of this morning's reading, an experiment, a non-stop experiment, unless we blow up the lab. As we wait to see whether or not we, the American people, will blow up the lab, whether through the election's results or response to or resistance to the results, for the facing of this hour, we must maintain a commitment to our calling. The practice of our Unitarian Universalist faith asks much of us. In religious language, we as UUs are called, given a purpose to fulfill in this life, which is to live out, to embody the values of our faith in all that we do. In a post on her blog, Letters from an American, written this past July, historian Heather Cox Richardson reflected on democracy in a way that resonated with what I believe our faith calls us to embody at this very moment in history. She writes, every time we expand democracy, it seems we get complacent, thinking it's a done deal. We forget that democracy is a process and that it's never finished. And when we get complacent, people who want power use our system to take over the government, and it starts to seem like we have lost our democracy. But all the while, there are people who keep the faith. Lawmakers, of course, but also teachers and journalists and the musicians who push back against the fear by reminding us of love and family and community. And in those communities, people begin to organize. The marginalized people who are the first to feel the bite of reaction, and grassroots groups. They keep the embers of democracy alive until something fans them into flame. End quote. We must be keepers of the faith, keepers of the embers of democracy. We must also be those who, at the right moment, fan the embers into flame. Right now, most Unitarian Universalists I know are fanning, aggressively so, fanning the embers with hope and prayer and action and organizing. We do not know if they will catch and turn into flame, or if they do, how long the fire will last, and if it will be enough for those who seek its warmth and light. We do it not because we're sure we will win. We do it because it's what we do. Depending on how this week unfolds, or however many weeks it takes, we may be looking at embers that do not catch. But these embers are not to be left untended. I grew up in a home not far from here, heated primarily by wood stove. At night, our little house would be toasty warm, and we'd shut the stove down. Whoever awoke first the next morning was tasked with restarting the fire from the embers, the warm embers from the night before. In the depth of winter, we could go days without starting a fire from scratch. We must be keepers of the embers of democracy, keepers of the faith promoting and living our values of justice and equity, pluralism and transformation, generosity and interdependence, with love at the center of all that we do. Do you remember the service, Refugia Faith, from back at the end of September? We talked about how we as people of faith are called to be like ecological refugia. In Deborah Rienstra's words, places of shelter, where life endures in times of crisis, and out of which new life emerges. To be a keeper of the embers of democracy is to be a people of refugia, keepers of faith and life and humanity in the face of destruction. Reverend Horan writes about Ricardo Levins Morales, artist of social change, who uses another metaphor. Morales teaches that the soil is more important than the seeds, that the soil is more important than the seeds. She writes, our work as visionaries, as movement builders, as organizers for liberation, depends on our ability to create the conditions of possibility for victory over long arcs of time. This includes primarily creating narratives of hope, liberation, possibility, and freedom that seem not only plausible, but within our reach. We cannot accept the frames offered to us by fascism, by authoritarianism, by scarcity and oppression. Electoral politics is one tiny part in that work of soil tilling, and it is important. Even though there is no perfect soil, Horan reminds us that there is always the possibility of soil remediation and even fertilization, and that the soil is ours to tend. For the facing of this hour, we need to be attentive to our broken hearts, too. At the very beginning of my formation as a minister, I trained as a hospital chaplain. One of my units was the ICU, and I was most fascinated by the heart patients. The day after a major cardiac procedure, often the patients still had some tubes in their chest, which would have to be removed, so the surgical site was still technically open. Some of you, Peter, are very familiar with this. Others of you too. Sitting beside them, what I saw, and reminder, I am not a doctor, what I saw covering their open chest looked to me like a bunch of cotton balls covered by a piece of saran wrap. All that there seemed to be between their heart, their tender, beating, healing heart, and my own was a wad of fuzz and a thin piece of plastic. I have been thinking lately about hearts, our individual hearts and the collective heart of a people. This vital organ the size of our fist, which keeps the physiological systems going that keep us alive, that which connects us emotionally and spiritually to the people we love, which breaks and heals and breaks again, and may be at times separated from the world by just a little bit of cotton and a little bit of plastic. That's how close to the surface they are, how exposed. What separates us is so very thin. I'm thinking about hearts, because the more I pay attention, the more I understand that the very human institutions that are breaking our hearts cannot be where I ultimately put my faith. The seeds of healing, of liberation, and of love have never been and will never be found in the boardroom, the Supreme Court, or the Oval Office. They have been planted, these seeds tended and nourished in the soil, the holy ground between my heart and yours, in the love that dwells and moves between and within each of us, that space where I end and you begin. And so, yes, we vote. Through hell and high water, we vote, but we do not place our faith in the deeply broken human institutions in which we cast our ballots. We believe in democracy, but we do not entrust democratic institutions with our salvation. For we know that ultimately it is love present in the connections between us, that space between my heart and yours where we must put our faith. So though the protection may be thin, and it is always at risk of breaking, I will keep my heart open, and I will till the soil so that the seeds of a wild hope might take root. Friends, let us keep our hearts open, and let us face this hour together. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn this morning will be just up on the screen. It's not in our hymnal, entitled, "There's a Wild Hope in the Wind." Dale will play it through once, and then you are invited to rise in body or in spirit as we join our voices as one. future feels dim, but we want to live into a wild, wild, wild hope. Friends, I invite you to go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage, hold fast to that which is good, render to no one evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the afflicted, honor all people, live your values, rejoicing always in the power of love, and so may you go forth into our beloved world with all its tribulations and shortcomings, for our worship has ended and our service begins. Blessed be.